Mal, everybody. I just decided to do a quick live stream because I can, and I don't know how long I'm gonna stay here, but I'm gonna try to, do this for as much as I can. So, for those people who are just trying to live stream for the first time, I just want to tell you, if you want to support me, you can join my membership by going to YouTube, and if you're on Android or you're on Chrome, you can click join button if you want to support. If you don't, that's fine too. Just came a couple of videos on YouTube as well. Dates the SP 500, Nasdaq, IWM, the Russell 2000, as well as Bitcoin, Ethereum. I can't really share my thoughts there, and also made a video on Palantir, as well as Tesla and Nvidia. So probably gonna skip those. And then tomorrow morning and Eastern time at 9 a.m., 6 a.m. Pacific, you guys can wake up early enough. And also maybe around, I guess it'd be like 9 p.m. Asia time. If you guys want to come on and join us, we're going to do a little bit of a Spaces, which is basically a podcast here with some of my favorite people. So, well, hello. What what is Gamecock? I have no idea. Is that a stock or something? Well, hello, the great Mass B. Always great to have you saying hi. I don't really have like any particular purpose in terms of trying to talk about anything. I guess I can go through some of the stocks, especially for fintech. I can talk a little bit about, SoFi, Affirm, Shopify. Um, oh, Gamecock is not GME, but if you want me to talk about GME, I can. Honestly, like, there's really not much, new. Just right off the bat, on the daily chart is looking better because it is now starting to flip the blue line, the Tenkan, the conversion line, whatever you want to call it, from resistance to support. And as it does that, it may be a little bit of a trend change, right? I mean, you're talking about this being resistance for about a couple of weeks now, and we might be experiencing a little bit of trend change. The wave trend oscillator is also telling you the same thing, So on the daily chart, looking pretty decent. If I do the Bollinger Band I would like to at least have it kind of retrace back to the mean, which is going to be around like 23, 24, somewhere around there. On the weekly, it has been reclaiming the bull market support band, which is always a good sign. On top of that, bull market support band is also pointing up, by the way, so that's always a good sign. And on top of that, you also bounce off the weekly Ichimoku cloud. And this looks very much like a high volume breakout with a declining volume back test. So these things generally are, considered to be bullish as far as I'm concerned. And granted, you don't have the momentum quite just yet building up, but I think the weekly, trend oscillator usually is a little bit delayed, so I'm not going to get that worried about it. But I just like the fact that it's been finding support at the cloud as well as the Blue support band. And I think that it might be at a pretty decent spot for it to bounce up higher. On the monthly, you also, so far, again, still a little bit early in the month of August, but so far you have a little bit of a hammer bottom, if you will, right? So I'm feeling a little bit, decent about GameStop. Plus, I think this vicious downtrend has been on pretty much like declining volume to like no volume over the last couple of months. So I think GME is probably going to do pretty decent. I talked about QQQ on another video just now that I just posted. You want to go ahead and check that real quick, but I can talk about it here real quick. The key thing about QQQ is I'm going to turn the volume off here. The key thing about QQQ, I like to look at the Ichimoku on the monthly, is that it's still a bull trend. There's really nothing broken on the higher time frame. On a bull trend on the way up, you expect it to ride along the rising Tenkan, the blue line over here on the monthly Ichimoku cloud analysis. Just like the bull trend, like over here, is riding up along the blue line, over here is riding up along the blue line. So it came back. It was a pretty nasty correction from like a July over 500 all the way down to like 420s. But this is basically what you expect for a pretty brutal correction, which in the greater scheme of things is really nothing. I'm also not really that worried about, like, people are pointing out, oh, I have like a downtrending oscillator. You have like a little bit of exhaustion. I'm not really worried about that. Just look at like what happened here. From like 2013 all the way to like 2015. You have price gone up for like 2 years straight with a bearish divergence. I'm not really that worried about it. I don't think this bull market is over yet. There's really nothing to tell me that this bull market is over. So um, that's my thoughts on QQQ. I can look at other stuff too, like ARK. I would like to see ARK close the month above the conversion line, which is going to be around 42 bucks. If it closes above conversion, all this giant wick candle over here become more or less a hammer, and that would be a very nice hammer bottom. And so far, I'm still relatively bullish on ARK because it just seems like it made a little bit of like a 3-wave up, and then 5 waves up, and then right now it's just doing a little bit of ABC correction. Overall, it doesn't really look bad to me. If you look at the Bollinger Band here on a monthly, I think it's very, very similar over here as it is over here. Sometimes you can kind of break down the rising 20-month moving average, but make no mistake about it, the 20-month moving average looks like it wants to go up just because overall last 20 months has been more or less a bull trend. So I'm not that worried about it. Yeah, and Tesla also came up with a video earlier. I honestly think that right now on the lower time frame, I'm just going to go for it real quick, because I did come up with a video earlier. If you're wondering whether it's a bull flag, I think it's a little bit stretching it because obviously it's like gone a little bit way too far, way too fast, or downwards. And I'm not sure if I can call this thing a bull flag, but what I can say is that on a lower time frame on the daily chart, this looks like an ascending triangle, and it looks like it wants to break about 200. And the wave trend oscillator is also turning positive here on the daily. If you want to know more about it, again, I have a video I just made talking about Palantir, talking about Tesla and NVIDIA. I go through a little bit more in detail on there. So, boy, yeah, Clean Spark. I have been very, I've been very disappointed. I mean, I think I can speak for pretty much like most of us. It's not surprising, but again, just like the Tesla, just like QQQ, you look at the daily, this still looks a little bit like a ascending triangle. It doesn't look as ascending triangle as like Mara. It doesn't look as like bullish as like Bitfarms on a daily. It doesn't look as ascending triangle as like CIFR. It is lagging behind a little bit, but more or less it's still got like a little bit of ascending triangle look to it. We had earnings, and earnings was like, to me it's like a nothing burger. You can actually, I actually don't know why they delayed it. It's a bad look. I'm not gonna like defend them for it. But all I can say right now is that this looked more like a bull flag than a bear flag, right? If the consolidation is happening down here, I would be a lot more worried. But the consolidation is happening over here, it looks like it wants to close the gap above. And if anything, like if you just zoom out, I'm going to zoom out to like the weekly chart here. And if you're going to do it, if you're going to do a Fibonacci sequence all the way from the last cycle high down to the cycle low, I would say that it broke underneath the it broke underneath this. Actually, this looks a little bit different. It's probably because of log scale. Let me change that here for a sec. Yeah, it's log scale. It kind of broke underneath the 0.236, which is not what I want to see, but it still ended up closing above this week above the Fibonacci level, right? And it's still got a gap above. If anything, like, right now the gap is above now. So I actually feel like wherever you end up buying down here is actually a better risk reward ratio. You're going to go out there and you're going to listen to people and say, oh, don't buy, like, it's going to go down to 10. It's going to go back down to like, to close the gap down here below around like the 7.3 or something like that. It's going to get back to the Fibonacci level down here, which is not a, impossibility. It's not an impossibility, but right now, if you look at the lower time frame, what it really does look like is it like bounced. It went through the 0.236, and it just got back above of it, and it's trying to find support here on a very important Fibonacci level, right? So I don't dislike this technical look. I mean, obviously, I like it to have broken this rectangle over here to the upside, but like sometimes these things happen. Bitcoin just went flushed down to like 49,000. What do you expect, right? It broke down and it found support here at the volume shelf. And the next next place it's going to end up gravitating towards, if he's able to find support over here, would be back to the top of the range. It's going to be around 15, you know. And that's going to be some resistance over here because price spent a long time over here. So we'll see what happens. But I think based on the current look right now, and also based on just how oversold like the daily wave trend oscillator is, and also the fact that it's turning positive, and the fact that it's got more like a bull flag look to it than a bear flag look to it. Yeah, I don't have much bad things to say about it. Yeah, if you talk about stock TWID, yeah, they are actually great sentiment indicators. If they're like, when I was posting all these Tesla charts when price was like under 160, 180, like I can't believe how much negative sentiment there were over there for like Tesla. They were just really a bunch of toxic folks over there. So it's actually good to hear all the bears are out full force and stock tweet. That's very good to hear. I have a stock tweet account. I have about like I think like 5,300 followers over there, but I don't. I have a hard time responding to everything because I just don't like the way that like I can't tease out how many which notifications like likes and which notifications like comments. So I actually don't know. I just keep getting like likes and likes, and I just can't keep track of it all. So I like it, but yeah, I like it as a sentiment indicator. That's what I gotta say. But CleanSpark, make no mistake about it, is one of the weaker ones. Like look at Mara. Mara's looking very, very nice. You know, it doesn't even have a gap to close. Came back down to the 0.136 bounds very nicely. You know, and CleanSpark just doesn't have that. But either way, on a daily chart, it looks like, you know, all these miners look like they, you know, bottom, and looks like they want to go up. Now, how much higher they're going to go up on this run, I don't know. But I still think that CleanSpark is still a good opportunity, even though the weekly looks like a rejection. If you look at the daily, it actually looks like it got back above the Fibonacci level and just back testing it. So I think it's important to put that into context here. Now, with that said, if I also just put out the Bollinger Band, I'm going to get rid of these Fibonacci level here. If I just put out Bollinger Band, it's like way underneath the lower Bollinger Band. It closed way underneath of that, right? So it's gonna, I mean, granted, the lower Bollinger Band is going to end up keep going down over time, right? So you're still going to have a little bit of an issue, you know, trying to find some support over here. But as long as we continue to get some support around like the $11 level over here at this volume shelf, I think it can work its way back up to 15. And I think it's still way too far overextended to the downside. If anything, you would need a retracement to the mean back to like the 14, 15 range. Maybe there would be some hard time trying to break above this negative sloping 20-week moving average and where our support band. There's going to be some resistance up here above. But I think that price would probably end up wanting to gravitate up towards this area on the top part of this range. And then we're going to have some battles to fight up there for, you know, for the bulls against the bears. But just look at this. Like, this is very much of a flush. This is not something that you generally see. And whenever you see something like that, whenever things just kind of get way overextended to the downside, like usually it's getting pretty close to a very, very important bottom. When things get a little bit overextended to upside, that usually means a pretty significant top. So if you ask me, yeah, I mean, can I guarantee that the gaps won't close down here like 7, you know, whatever? I can't guarantee you that. But I still think the risk reward ratio down here is going to be a lot better than it was up here, right? So yeah, I think it's been overextended. On the monthly, actually looks very nice. On the monthly, actually looks like it just kind of got close to a rising 20-month moving average. So I don't have that much bad things to say about CleanSpark. It broke down, you know, yeah, but it's trying to find support here at the volume shelf. And it's stuck in a range down here below. Bitcoin is still also not anywhere near its previous high, right? It's still around 12,000 points away from its all-time highs. So I guess we just have to be a little bit patient, and also put that into context here. RWM is also the previous all-time high was like over here around 244. So we're still around like close to 40 points away from the previous all-time high. So I think some patience is required. I don't think that the crowd that was hoping to chase the momentum up, with CleanSpark, I don't think they're around anymore. They're probably already sold here with the capitulation. So those are my thoughts for CleanSpark. Would I choose to own CleanSpark over Bitcoin? I own both. My Bitcoin holding is a lot more than CleanSpark. So I think it's, how should I say this? If you're going to buy miners, if you choose to buy miners, and you don't have to, and this is not financial advice, these are just me like shooting my thoughts. If you buy miners, you are basically wanting to buy before Bitcoin breaks up to its all-time highs and go into price exploration. And you want to buy before IWM breaks above all-time high and goes in price exploration. Because right now, it's still, to me, if Bitcoin is going to break through more all-time highs, it's going to go a lot higher. And if IWM is going to break through its all-time high and go up a lot higher, I have a hard time seeing CleanSpark not making higher, basically beyond the previous cycle high. I have a hard time not seeing that happening, right? And these things can happen quickly. Like you're talking about price, like right down here, like they really thought that miners are going to go bankrupt, and price got below $2, and then the next thing you know, it just takes about less than a year and a half for price to go from like less than $2 to like 25, right? So overall, this is still a higher low. I would say that if you want to be bullish on miners, like the time to be bullish was around like here $6 or $7, and the time to be bullish would be like around like $10 to $11. To be really bullish, I mean, I was still bullish up here, but I was trying to more like time the bottom of this range over here. Obviously, the range broke down, so be it, right? But I'm still probably going to end up trying to maybe add a little bit, whatever I can. I still think that it's just forming a higher low, and I still think that overall, those are my thoughts. Anyway, talk about now that I'm CleanSpark, I guess I'll talk about all the miners just real quick. Mara did the same thing, is range bound. I don't have much else new to say about it. If you want to take like a lower time frame, all I gotta say is it looks like a little bit of a bull flag. It looks like a little bit like a ascending triangle bull flag, and the daily is oversold. It looks like it's pointing up. So Mara looks good from that perspective. If you are looking at the weekly, it also doesn't really have a gap to close unlike CleanSpark. But yeah, I mean, it's just at the bottom of range. It bounced on the bottom of range, and this looks like it wants to reverse course based on looking at the daily chart. So yeah, I don't have much else to say about it. If you also look at the Bollinger Band here on the weekly, it's not as oversold as CleanSpark. It bounced up from the lower Bollinger Band. Initially, it was like way outside of lower Bollinger Band on Black Monday, but bounced up pretty nicely, right? So it's not that far away from the 20-week moving average. It's not that far from the Bollinger Support Band, and I think we might be hitting resistance up here around like 19 to 20 relatively soon if Bitcoin continues to recover, which looks like it probably wants to. So I can see Mara maybe hitting resistance a little bit sooner, maybe another like couple of dollars before it hit resistance. Whereas CleanSpark, I think the resistance is going to be around close to like 15, right? So it's just a little bit too far overstretched downwards. So I think people might be surprised whenever price runs up on a CleanSpark. They're going to be pretty surprised by that, just like they've been surprised by how fast like Bitcoin has been able to recover. But yeah, nothing bearish that I'm seeing here. The only thing about CleanSpark 2 I forgot to mention is if you look at the weekly Shimoku, it found support there, right? You look at the weekly Shimoku for Mara, it broke down underneath of it. Are these things kind of a little bit artificial sometimes? Maybe. It reclaimed the sort of itchy cloud here. But the the bottom of the line to look at Mara is this, is that Mara is stuck in range. And it's just hit the bottom of range, and right now is somewhere in the, somewhere closer to the bottom of range. I think that it's going to have some, resistance around 1920. He was able to break that above, then the top power range is going to be around like 24. So we'll see whether or not, if they just want to trade this thing forever sideways, then, good for you. Like if Urkel wants to continue to just buy the top instead of the bottom, and if it keeps on working for another like 5 years, that's great. But I don't see that like necessarily happening. And I think it's probably consolidated enough. And I think that this is still an upward channel as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I think this is still like a little bit upward channel as far as I'm concerned, right? So and it's forming mostly higher lows and higher highs. So I'm still bullish on Mara, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, at this point, I should be more bullish as I'm here as price consolidated sideways for so long, as we're at the lower part of the range. I should be more bullish, but I'm not, and I think that tells me something. Like this is actually a pretty good spot to consider because it's correct sideways through price and time, and it's been doing that for a very long time. So that if anything, I think it's actually giving me a little bit more of a confidence secretly, although I do feel a lot of bearish sentiment. So it's actually not a bad thing. Always thought that Bitfarm is just like a more volatile version of Mara, and it's been really doing the same thing. Jules, thank you for the incredible tip. I did not expect that at all. Thank you so much for that. And thank you. I did read your your comment on one of my videos, so thank you for the kind words. I'm gonna just keep yapping then, I guess. Thanks for the encouragement. But yeah, I think Bitfarm is just more or less a more volatile version of Mara. And I think whatever Bitfarms end up doing, if Bitfarms just went up like 22% yesterday, I think Mara's probably just going to be a little bit lagged behind. Yeah, if you want to talk about the fundamentals of miners, I'm probably not the best person to talk about it. There are a bunch of great accounts on X that I recommend you guys to follow. I think DR Lewis is one of those that comes into mind. But there are a lot of folks that I follow, and they're great. Like I learn a lot from them. I'm gonna stick with what I can verbalize the best, although I do have my thoughts on the fundamentals. But I'm gonna stick with what I have know the best. Bitfarms, so far basically went up, got rejected over here in the top part of this volume shelf, came back down, flushed down, found support back over here at this peak of the volume shelf over here. Like this is a very decent look of a consolidation. If anything, it just looks like it's just doing a little bit of a symmetrical wedge over here, right? So, and again, it also looks kind of like Mara. Like it basically just looks like a channel on its way up, So I still like Bitfarms very much. I don't really have anything against it on all time frames. On the daily time frame, again, this looks even more impulsive, although it does have a little bit more of like a ascending wedge look to it. So that does get me a little bit worried that it might end up coming back down, break down, and kind of back to some of the other stuff. Whereas Mara's move is not as like impulsive. So and Bitfarms may be a little bit ahead of Mara in terms of trying to get the 0.236 Fibonacci level. But it does have some bullish momentum going on from the daily too, right? So overall, I still think that it looks pretty decent. CIFR, again, is very similar. Like all of these miners look very similar. Positive daily, curling up, and you also have a little bit of a bull flag over here, consolidating sideways. IREN doesn't look as good, but it also has a positive momentum here on the daily wave trend oscillator. And it did end up making its way, closing the week above the very important 0.236 Fibonacci level, right? I really did not expect it to go all the way down to the sixes. I really didn't. I really thought that it was probably going to find support up here around the eights and the sevens. Went all the way back down. What can I say? Closed the week above the 0.236. So it's not a bearish development at all. It's actually like it's doing exactly like what you think it would do, to be honest. Like, it's just basically, I guess, back testing a little bit of a trend line over here in the past. Whoever bought here, I think you're smart. Again, not financial advice, but yeah, probably a pretty decent opportunity down here. I don't think it's going to go all the way down to 4 or 5s. That's why I think it's just made a very compelling higher low here for IREN, whatever you call it. Terra Wolf probably going to be my last miner I'm going to talk about. And again, back test this range over here. I think it found some pretty decent support. I don't think it has quite that beautiful like back test of trend line. It's still a little bit further away. Like Wolf, I was scared. I thought Wolf was going to go down a lot further. I thought it could go down to like 2 or 2.3 or 2.5, but it didn't. It bounced up very, very nicely. Maybe it's just because it's ended up just gravitating to the bull support band here on the weekly. But yeah, like there's definitely potential for it to go all the way down to like the Ichimoku clap, but it didn't. Right, very strong bounce, very decent. I have nothing really bad to say about Terra Wolf right now. I think that this is probably the higher low that it was looking for, and it bounced, so it looks pretty good. Somebody asked about MSTR. I gotta say, so we had the split, right? You had the split. People ask me, what does the split do? I think the split's already priced in. If anything, I think moving forward, you're going to maybe having more retail speculators to come in. But to be honest, I don't think retail really moved the market, So I don't know what to make of it. All I know is that it bounced off of the range low over here. It closed above, the previous cycle high. So this week, so that's a positive development. If you look at a lower time frame on the daily, just like miners, very nice bull flag over here, and the daily positive momentum is happening. So I don't really have anything bad to say about MSTR. If you just look at even a lower time frame, you can see that price is trying to break above. Like if I put an Ichimoku, it looks like it's trying to find support here at the Tenkan, and it looks like it really wants to challenge the cloud up here, right? And it's closing above this Fibonacci support level over here. And the 4-hour trend oscillator also is turning pretty positive. So just look at a different time frame, like see how things are unfolding, right? You maybe have a little bit of a bullish cross technication over here on the 2-hour time frame. And this flag, this diamond, I think this is going to be like a diamond continuation pattern. And you have a lot of positive momentum that going on the lower time frame too. So as far as I'm concerned, MSTR is reclaiming a important level over here with the kitchen or the red line over here, which is currently around 132.5. That was a resistance level, and we closed above that this week. So the next resistance level is going to be a negative sloping Tenkan down here, which is going to be 143. It got really close to it, and I really had a hard time seeing this week closing above of that. I thought it was going to get rejected from it, and it got rejected from it. So just like the great Mansfield always says, just be maybe a little bit more bearish when it comes to resistance, and be more bullish when it comes to support, right? It's funny how things work, right? So I can totally see the case where the great Mansfield was saying that yeah, it can consolidate sideways over here and hit the cloud before going up. It can even go down a little bit further and go up, But I can't ignore the fact that Bitcoin has a pretty decent bounce, and that MicroStrategy also had a pretty decent bounce, that it's got back above Fibonacci level, got back above the weekly kitchen. And I think this is going to be like 143 is going to be a level. Again, I don't know what Tenkan is going to be. Maybe it's a little bit lower, and we might be having a little bit easier time to kind of break above of it. But I think we need to get a week close above that if we can. And then next thing you just be reclaiming, resistance back into support. And I think price consolidated sideways for like 5 months now. I think it's probably ready to run. Maybe another few weeks, who knows? But I am not bearish on this chart here at all. On the monthly, you can see that it really just went down to grab liquidity at a Fibonacci level of 0.7386 Fibonacci. And it also came back down and backtest the Tenkan down here, and it bounced, right? So if it bounced from support very strongly, I cannot be that bearish about it. I'm not really worried about the oscillator pointing down here on the monthly. I think that if anything, price needed to correct this whole move that happened for like a year and a half, and all of this stuff over here is completely warranted, and the trend is still bullish on the higher time frame because the 20-month is pointing up, and because if you look at all the moving averages, it's still pointing up, right? 20 above 50 above 100 weekly moving average. It couldn't even touch the 50, you know. So it depends on how you look at it. I actually am still leaning, more bullish on it. Went back, basically touched the lower Bollinger Band here on the weekly and bounced very strongly, right? So just very similar to the Ichimoku where I was saying there's resistance up about here around like 143. You also have the resistance at the Bollinger Support Band, right? You also got rejected over here, broke down, had a very strong bounce up and got rejected over here the first time. It might take a little bit more time to kind of break back above, and maybe the same time that it might need to kind of maybe get a little bit closer to cloud. But there's no guarantee. I mean, like these things don't always have to touch the cloud. Like they can just go up if they want to. I don't think that it needs to do that, but if it needs to, there's a cloud right there next to it. So I think the risk level, we've already touched it, like which is stuck in a range, and it's going to be lower end of range. It bounced from lower end of range. I don't have anything else to say about that. I do think that looking at the weekly chart on the Ichimoku, I do think that MicroStrategy wants to continue to outperform Bitcoin, but not quite yet. Because if you look at the MicroStrategy over Bitcoin chart, which is what this ratio here is to show, it's been a bull trend since May of 2022, just doing nothing but higher lows and higher highs. And right now, this week, it got rejected at the weekly Tenkan. But it looks like it wants to break through that, doesn't it? It looks like MicroStrategy wants to keep running. So, yeah, if they want to hold back a little bit further, then so be it. But I just think that this pattern over here currently looks very similar to this pattern over here. Maybe it's going to consolidate sideways here a little bit more before going up. But I think MicroStrategy wants to continue to outperform Bitcoin. And that actually gives me more confidence about Bitcoin, because those people who buy into MicroStrategies are, it's a very highly liquidable asset because it's a stock. Hey, Vivian, don't work too hard. You know, I enjoy this. If I enjoy this, it's not work, right? You know that. So I got to say that if I cannot be that bearish on Bitcoin, if the leverage play for Bitcoin, like MicroStrategy, looks like a bull trend and looks, more bullish than Bitcoin actually, then I cannot really be that bearish on the underlying correlated assets. Because if the whales knew something, they would have exited earlier, right? Just like how the whales knew that there's going to be a liquidity crunch. And the previous cycle high was in February 2021 when Bitcoin went up, making another higher high in November, right? We're not seeing that. We're seeing MicroStrategy actually looks better than this Bitcoin chart, doesn't it? It looks better. It just does. I don't have anything else to say about it. Yeah, yeah, Jules, I don't know. I mean, I think it's yeah, I think it's still, I'm still optimistic. That's all I have to say. I'm still optimistic because of the things I'm seeing. This cycle looks nothing like like the last cycles, by the way. Like I'm looking through, I'm trying to find some correlate in terms of what other cycles have this kind of look to it, where you just go 6 months sideways. I think the only thing I saw that is similar to that would be like this big, downward move over here. I don't think we're going to have this happen again. I really truly think that this March 2020 was a true black swan event. I really thought that if we didn't have this downward candle, this would have been it. You have like 6 months sideways downwards, which is basically what we're experiencing right now. and you might have like a little bit of trees or bottom over here. I guess we might have another month, but who knows, right? Maybe this is a trees or bottom over here, and then we might end up having a good bounce from it. And if COVID didn't happen, I think this would have gone up a little bit more smoothly, and we might have also not have this truncated, elite wave over here. This is like a truncated fifth wave, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 you expect to go a lot higher, but it just got truncated. So to me, I feel that who knows if this right here looks similar to here, then maybe this entire thing over here is wave 1. don't, I don't know. Like, I mean, what if this entire thing over here is wave 1, right? I think it's entirely possible. The reason why I think it's entirely possible is because the U.S. money printer hasn't even really been turned on quite just yet. Like we're not even near the all-time high previous U.S. money supply, right? And they've been starting to warm up the printer, but they've just been a little bit slow. But like over like February to June, like they really started cranking it up. So yeah, that explains why IWM is starting to look more bullish. But why did Bitcoin go sideways between like March to like June, when the U.S. liquidity, when U.S. empty money supply has just been going up? Well, I think a couple of reasons why is because Bitcoin has maybe front ran, the U.S. money supply already, and it has to digest this move, so it doesn't always have to correlate like on a shorter time frame. But in a long time frame, I think this means something, right? I think the liquidity is probably going to end up going to Bitcoin somehow. It just hasn't been doing that yet, right? The other thing too, I thought maybe because the Chinese money supply has actually gone sideways from like March through June for whatever reason. Maybe it's just their money printers like getting a little bit stuck with me. It just went way too far, way too fast all the way to March, and they have to just kind of cool down. So this might actually be a little bit more correlated with Bitcoin in terms of what it's doing. And obviously this is like you don't need the trend wave oscillator. Like this just keeps going up over time. Like you don't need any indicators for that. This just keeps going over time. But there seemed to be a little bit of a deceleration over the last few months in terms of Chinese liquidity, which is interesting. I was actually kind of surprised to see that. But regardless, it doesn't matter because the US is printing and it looks like the trend is up. So I think eventually Bitcoin is going to catch up. So I thought I was going to talk a little bit about like the fintech, and I'm probably going to end the show. One of my faves, I suppose, that hasn't really worked out very well is SoFi. I still buy SoFi. I still DCA into it every week because I still see this being a bottom of a range. And I still see this overall look as a descending wedge, And descending wedge typically are bullish. And then on top of that, whenever you start seeing like multiple wicks underneath like this, like you start seeing multiple wicks over here, big giant wick over here, by the way, right? This is a very nice hammer bottom candle. You see like 3 wicks over here, up, right? 3 or 4 wicks over here, up, right? Right now we got like 3 wicks down here. May not mean anything. I mean, the month hasn't even closed yet, but I still think that we're closer to like the bottom of the range than the top. And I still think that there is enough reason for me to want to stay in SoFi and just buy the bottom of the range and see where it goes, right? A lot of the technicals that I don't really look at, they're not really working out that well anymore. Like you did have a bullish cross over here, but price is just having a hard time breaking above $8. So the way I see it, I'm seeing this a little bit different. Like if you talk about with like Danny would be like, hey, there's no momentum in this stock. There's no whales. It can go down further. There's opportunity cost to be considered. Why don't you like chase momentum, right? Like why don't you just sell if there's a yellow candle, but buy if there's a red candle? Why don't you chase momentum, right? I do that with some stocks. I don't do that with others. Like with SoFi, I have a little bit of a different approach. Just like I use this same approach for like Tesla. For Tesla, I generally use a little bit more of an approach. If it's like less than 200, I buy, right? And so far, it's been working decent. With SoFi, to me, I think is anything less than $8, I'll buy. And I do think that it's very similar concept here. Like price has been oscillating around $8 here for a very long time, and we talked about this during our live stream with the Great Mass being the Tesla tracker. It's been also around $8 for a very long time. Sometimes it goes down a lot further. Sometimes it goes up a lot more, right? But eventually gravitates up towards $8. So $8 is going to be a support zone or resistance zone. And right now, the further away from $8 it is, I think the better risk reward ratio it is. This is a little bit of a different look because I usually look at like Ichimoku. There's nothing to see. It's underneath resistance. You look at the Bollinger Support Band. There's nothing to see. It's underneath resistance. You look at a Bollinger Band. There's nothing to see. It's under resistance, right? But I have a little bit of a different strategy when it comes to this, and it's just a little bit of a different thinking process. This is more like a long-term thinking process, and I'm patient with SoFi. I actually do believe in like the fundamentals for that here a little bit. So I have another thought to it. Affirm has just been absolutely vicious, right? It came back down all the way down here. It's finally finding support here at the volume shelf down here around 25. I know, like, and I was getting really more bullish down here. Just the reason why I was getting more bullish down is because there's no volume on the way down. And the further it down it goes, the better risk reward I think there is, right? Initially, I thought that this volume shelf over here is going to hold, but now it came back all the way down here. I think Jesse actually, micro to macro, like a few months ago, actually warned me, like, hey, it could go down to volume shelf down here to like 25. Be careful, right? And sure enough, it did. I still feel comfortable holding it because overall it's still like a very, very nice bull trend. This is just a higher low. Even though price went from like 50 to like 20, 25, this is just a higher low. It's just basically back testing some of the levels over here. And the decline over here is on low volume. Like, if you really truly have like a bunch of fear on rates and things like that, why didn't people just have like a flush down sell, right? Like, no, they just slowly burn you down to correct some of the technicals. And I think I'm still DCAing it. I've been starting DCAing right around like the 30 range. I've been DCAing over the last few months. So I'm still buying. Like, the lower it gets, the better. I don't care. Like, if it goes all the way down to like 20, I don't care. On low volume, the lower it gets, the better. Like, this is a different strategy that I would have for like Danny would never do anything like this. He would never do anything like this. So that's just a little bit of strategy. Because if you look at the tradition, like the technicals I see, yeah, you're bullish cross, but price is currently like way underneath of that, right? You have a Bollinger Band. You are finding some support here in the 20-month moving average, which is good. Which is why I think that currently is a pretty decent risk reward ratio to buy over here, both based on the 20-month moving average, based on the decline volume of this downtrend. So a lot of positives that I'm seeing here. Although, like, this is just not a stock that a lot of people would touch at this point because they just look at the candles and it's a downtrend. They don't care. They chase momentum, whatever. I like Affirm. Shopify. I've been calling about Shopify and SQ, which is Block, and and PayPal, and I'm gonna talk about Coinbase. I'm probably gonna end the show. The Shopify's stock here, I was very much demoralized, and the Great Massby knows this, because I was extremely unhappy that it broke underneath the weekly cloud, and it looked like I don't know where the bottom was going to be. But all it takes is just a good earning. Now, this is what's been happening in Shopify on the monthly. And monthly, Ichimoku Cloud tells the whole story. Let me turn the volume off here because it's a little bit distracting. The monthly cloud here tells the whole story. You have a very, very nice bull trend. It went all the way from 24 bucks all the way up to the bottom of Ichimoku Cloud here around 90. Got rejected here at the bottom of Ichimoku Cloud, as you would expect, because I don't expect to just push through Ichimoku Cloud on the first try. That would be insane, But it got rejected here. Came back down, trying to find some support. Where was it going to find support? Was it going to be the Tenkan around 68? I thought it could be, bought more here. I mean, anyway, my average is actually somewhere around like the 40, to be honest. And as I continue to buy more at the bottom of the range here, it's getting more to like the high 40s. That's where my cost average is at. Came back down, broke through the Tenkan. I'm like, okay, so the Kijun over here could serve support for 3 months. Flushed down, and I was like, what the heck? Trying to backtest this level over here again. And sure enough, it grabbed a lot of liquidity down here and just bounced way back up. Right now, it's at the top of the range. Right now, it's closer to resistance at the Tenkan. Do I think that it's going to break above the Tenkan? Yeah, but it's at the top of the range. I don't know where it's going to break up, immediately. So I scaled back down. I was buying like DCAing over here, and today I scaled back a little bit. I'm still DCAing, but I'm not DCAing as much anymore. That's what I'm seeing with Shopify. And on the weekly chart, like it broke back into the cloud. Same thing, right? It's right at resistance in the downward sloping kitchen over here. But I cannot be that bearish on the Shopify anymore because you have a big giant bullish engulfing candle that engulf like all of these like bearish candles over here. So there's nothing bearish about this chart anymore, with the exception that on the short term, you're at resistance. SQ, same thing. I thought it was broke underneath the cloud. I was a little bit worried. I mean, I don't have a position for SQ, but it's just been following this line over here. And I think eventually this line's going to break. And when this line's going to break, it's going to shoot up like crazy. The first target's going to be, well, if it breaks this line over here, I think the first target is going to be around like 90, 95, somewhere up here. Second target is going to be like 150. And if it does that, I think it's going to go up in a hurry, but it's just been consolidating sideways like insane. And right now, it closed the week back inside the weekly cloud. So it's you're going to have a little bit of resistance up in the 60s, but that's okay. Like it wasn't very good support, so I don't think it's going to be that much of a resistance. I do think same thing, right? Like on the Ceviche, you're going to have a little bit of resistance up here in the 60s. But again, it's probably going to work its way up. But whenever this line breaks, I think that would be it. It's a very powerful accumulation. Again, Danny would never buy anything like this unless he has confirmation. But if you want to get into SQ, I think you have to be extremely patient. But I think once it's done, like this is a big giant accumulation zone over here for like almost 3 years now, which is absolutely insane. But you do have to have patience. Not financial advice. PayPal. Well, really busy here. All right, DD, have a good night. Let's see here. Yeah, so PayPal, I'm just going to pull up the monthly here. Monthly is reclaiming the Tenkan here again. I'm not bearish on PayPal, guys. I think it's going to go up, push up to like the $74 range, maybe even push up to like $76 range by the end of the year, over the next few months. I don't think it's going to go higher than that. I just don't think it's going to shoot up like anything crazy. Like I don't think it's going to get up to like the 80s without having a lot of struggles up here, just because of the kitchen resistance, just because of volume shove resistance over here. But this is a very bullish development. Is able to reclaim the Tenkan so far, right? I'm not bearish on PayPal. Matter of fact, I actually may buy PayPal maybe more towards the end of the year. If it gets rejected down here, I'll try to find some support level. If it breaks out above early next year and it back tests, I might try to buy around like the 75 zone. I'm not bearish on PayPal. That's all I gotta say. On the weekly chart, it's hitting some of the top of the weekly Ichimoku cloud resistance over here. So is it going to break through? I don't know. It looks like it had a hard time doing that for 2 weeks in a row. So we'll see. But I can see it consolidating sideways here in the cloud a little bit longer, and then breaks above and try to challenge like the 70 and the 75 zone, which is going to be some pretty strong resistance. And that's probably going to where it's going to end for the year, is what I'm thinking. Finally, last but not least, you want to talk about Coinbase. If you want to talk about Coinbase, I gotta say that it's a little bit underperforming the miners, but not by much. Like this basically, or it's underperforming MSTR too. But I don't know what to make of it because I think that it's just a candle in space. Like it didn't really hit any important indicators that I was looking at. And it's just a little candle here in space. But the good thing is that it back tested this level over here. This back test is 0.382 over here. And it closed the week above of it. And this hasn't been done, and it's done. And this is a bullish thing for it to have done that. Because every single time when you're breaking above, like over here, it didn't really quite back test here, but I guess this wick over here touched that wick over there, you know. We haven't really have like a true back test of this level and doing that. So this is healthy. I think this is very healthy. And regardless, this is still going to be a very, very strong resistance zone up here around the high 200s, mid to high 200s. And before you break back above, now you're going to have some resistance levels up here to be worried about, right? Around 210 or so, you're going to have a few resistance levels up here above. So I still think that it probably has some ways to go, but you might be hitting some resistance zone up above here around like the 210 range. And for our support band next week's probably going to end up dropping down. So I think 210 might be a resistance zone, but it does look like it wants to go up there. Yeah, like the Bollinger Band is just way too far stretched underneath, and this move is unsustainable. So this candle over here is completely expected. I just wish that CleanSpark had that balance, right? Like it just CleanSpark just didn't really quite do that. It didn't have that impulse. Crowd has been very interesting. I could talk about CrowdStrike, and then I will probably end the show there. CrowdStrike has been extremely interesting. Where do I have CrowdStrike at? Right there. Yeah, so basically you have a few things. First of all, it bounced off of volume shelves over here. This is like the strongest volume shelf that there is, and it bounced from that pretty clearly, right? Went way underneath the Bollinger Band. I what did I see? I thought I saw something. Was it the Tsukiji or the Ichimoku? I thought I saw something that was very impressive. Yes, on the monthly Ichimoku. CrowdStrike, like this is like an absolutely beautiful picture of the Ichimoku cloud working, because you have price just kind of go parabolic up here with like 12 green candles here in a row. Almost clearly have like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of look to it. Now, I don't know it's going to have an ABC, maybe this bounce is just going to be it, right? But what it did was it has a big giant red candle down that broke through all of these support levels, and it bounced from this immature cloud over here. I think this is the leading span A of the cloud. Like eventually the cloud's over here, right? And this is kind of, in a way, it's kind of like an immature cloud. It bounced almost exactly right there. And where did it go so far? It went all the way up to the red line over here, which is the kitchen. And what happened when it got there? It got rejected. So I think that's going to be underneath the resistance here until further notice. But I do think that if the month closed like this, if the month closed like a hammer like this, that's the bottom. And it's probably going to end up going up higher. Now, it does not have the ABC correction, right? Like, let me see a lower time frame. Like, it doesn't really have that, right? So I don't know. It did end up finding support on the weekly cloud here, I suppose. And it did go a little bit lower, but it bounced right up, right? So, but yeah, I'm not sure if CrowdStrike is going to go lower anymore. I think this correction has been brutal enough, and it's already found some pretty strong support. And over here on the monthly, like it broke through the immature cloud like it's nothing, and just backtesting cloud. There's nothing bearish about it on a longer term frame, besides that it's underneath resistance now. But like overall, I think this is still a healthy market price action, no matter how crazy this candle was. Yeah, I thought Meta was one of those that is ready to run. And it really looks like it wants to go up higher. Like, look at these wicks down here below. And the Tenkan looks like it's rising. And it's not that overextended. So I think Meta looks ready. If your question is, do I think it could reach the high next week? That's a little bit tricky, because I generally don't know if I can do price prediction for like within like a week-to-week basis. So let me look at the daily chart here. Let me look at the lower time frame to try to entertain you, because I'm not very good at the daily time frame. When I look at the lower time frame, I try to turn on the trend oscillator, and it does look positive. It does look like there's momentum to go up, and it does look like this is a very nice cup formation kind of thing that looks like it wants to keep going higher. It did break back above the daily Ichimoku cloud. So there's a few things on the lower time frame that I am positive on. The only thing is, like, traders are going to notice like these kind of, trend lines, things like that. You're basically hitting some weak, resistance and whatnot. But overall, I cannot really be that bearish on like a cup and handle looking kind of chart. I mean, some people argue that this handle is a little bit too big, but like the overall thing is this is reaccumulation is what I'm seeing. And if I turn off the Ichimoku, if I do the weekly here, I cannot be that bearish on this weekly candle because it has no wick. Where's the wick? The wick is right there and right there. So this is a Marubasu candle. You're going to have most likely have bullish continuation the next week. So if you're talking about bullish continuation, yeah, I can probably hit, another 20 points up. I can see that happening. Do I guarantee that that's going to happen? No. All right, guys. That was it for me. Thank you so much for joining. You guys have a great night. It's getting late. It's been a crazy week. It's been an absolutely insane week. And I just want to thank you all for your support. Thank you all for your time. And thank you for the regulars, Low Gains, DD, Jules. We got, Vivian's always a great regular. I want to, if I don't give you a shout out, I'm sorry. I promise. I promise that I appreciate y'all's support. Have a great night. Take it easy. And we have spaces tomorrow again. Don't forget the spaces tomorrow. I'm going to chat with the great Maspy. A said he's going to be there. I think A said he's like working night shift and he's going to pop like some Red Bull or something. He's such an interesting guy. Garcia is going to be there. He's going to talk your ears off about Palantir tomorrow, probably. And Tracker, I think he's going to be there. We got Seth, he's going to be there. I have yet to hear back from Danny. I've yet to hear back from Jess. If they show up, great. If not, I think we still got a party. So be there, and we'll talk more tomorrow.